Hey, what is going on YouTube? Today we're going to work with C as we build a linked list. Now before we can start getting into building the linked list, we have to know what a linked list is. So I'm going to draw it out here in Krita here to show you guys exactly what a linked list is visually, and this will hopefully help get an idea of when we program it, we know what it looks like. Linked list is a very simple data structure. To show it visually, we can draw us a couple boxes here. I'm not going to go too crazy. We have sections of said boxes, which will be memory. And each one is connected. Creating the linked list. So this will be the pointer to the next linked list. So this will be the address. And then inside of here will be the data. So if you store like integers, that's where that will be housed. So that's basically what a linked list is. Very simple. And this will go off to null as I draw this out with a mouse. So that is a simple, straightforward linked list. I mean, you might ask yourself, why would we use a linked list over an array? Basically, over an array, this linked list can grow until you basically run out of memory. It also can grow and shrink during execution time, which is good. Basically a dynamic array, and it doesn't waste space, but it does, for these pointers, take up extra memory. So now that we have an idea of what the linked list looks like, let's jump over to the code and start to code this out. Now that we're over in Visual Studios, we should be able to code this up. Hopefully this video will not take long because all we're doing is just creating a simple linked list. Let's get right to it. We need to include, since this is C, we need to include stdio.h. We need a main. I can spell here. Main, turn 0. And to keep it simple, create a for loop. The structure is just going to hold data integers for the data. Going to go up to 10 because we don't want to go too crazy big. And then we will need a function to add to the list here, which will take I, and then structure, which we will create here shortly. So before all this, let's get to creating our structure, so that way we can create n, and that error can go away here. So for C, we need to struct, name it node, because that's what we can represent it as. And then for our data, which will be an int, then we need a pointer to the next node, which from the drawing had the arrow. So now we can jump back down here to main. We can create n, saying struct node. And then this is where we need to use malloc, which will create n in the size of node, which I know what I forgot here. So to show this really quickly, the size of struct node is the size of a data of the int, which is 4 bytes. So if you were to print, the size of node out, it would print out 4. As you can see, add to list, the n went away, but if we try to run it now, it will break because add to list. All right, let's jump right in, and let's make the function add to list. So we will return nothing, add to list. It's going to take an integer I, and then it's going to take a struct node, oh, if I can spell node right, node n. I is our index here, which would be 0 through 10, and then node is our this structure right there, which we will use to iterate through. Now if we say if n for data, so we can access this data, this member by using the arrow function to it, or arrow to it, a pointer. Since it is a pointer, you cannot dot into it. You do have to use the arrow as for C and C++ syntax. And then since we are using integers for the data, we'll say if it's everything's going to be greater than 0. So if we say it's less than or equal to 0, our structure, our node, doesn't exist. So then we have to set it. And then a pointer to the next variable will equal null. Oh, I know what happened. Alright, I got it. Because node doesn't exist. Now it should go away. Alright, now we got that. We can drop into our else statement here, our else block. So if that stuff, so this if statement says if this does not exist, then we got to create it. But otherwise, if it does exist, we have one, so we have to create a new node here, which will house our information. We'll name that new node, and here we will use the malloc again for the size of struct node. And then we can set our new node data to I, and then we can iterate. We have to iterate through this next after we set next to null. After we set new node next is equal to null, now we have to iterate through n here to find one that is not null, or that is null. And then we have to set n next n will become the n next, so we move down the list where n next is now equal to the new node. Let's run this really quickly, make sure it works. Nothing broke. Good sign, not necessarily, but no errors at least. So now we have the add to list function written. We should be able to add any data, any integer to this linked list. Now we should be able to go ahead and print out said linked list. That way we can see the contents. So we're going to say print list, and we're just going to pass in n for our node. And this will also be void, not returning anything. Print list, need a struct. We'll just use n again. So that way n kind of matches here. We're passing in n, we're using n. Now we have to iterate through. So we need to find the head of the node. It'll be set to n. And we can say while head doesn't equal null, we'll print out, since it is an integer, use %d, add a space. Then we can access the data of the head. And now we move down. We say head is equal to head next. And then this will set head next is head, and it doesn't equal null. And then we print out the data, and it does this until we hit null. Then we'll go and then we'll print out extra space at the end here. Give us a little more clearer vision on it. And that should be everything to a linked list. So let's run it and find out. There we go. 1, 2, 3, all the way up through 9. I plus 2. We gotta set I, so it makes sense. And now the linked list should decrease in size because we are only going up 2, 4, 6, 8. There you have it. That is all to a linked list. In the next video, we shall reverse this list in C, and then we might move it to C++ and touch on other languages as well. Make sure you subscribe for those if you are interested. Hopefully you found this video interesting. If you have any questions, if the questions get too crazy, I'll jump back into this and make another video and hopefully answer everybody's questions. Until then, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you again for watching. Have a good one.